Thank you guys so much. It is so awesome to be seen and heard.
All right, well, before we get to the timeline of the Supreme Court case, maybe you could just kind of backstory us a little bit. Tell us about your life, how you got into the Marine Corps, and then how you became a football coach.
Yeah, I was one of those terrible, terrible kids. I knew that I wasn't going to last much longer and I needed something to do. I needed to find something in my life. So I joined the finest fighting force and I thought that would be the perfect place where I could find discipline. Well, I did. I found teamwork. I found my family and my calling, and I just never turned my back. And 20 years later, boom, there I am. I'm retired from the Marine Corps trying to figure out what's next in my life.
What did you do in the Marine Corps, sir?
Well, I started out as a motor transport mechanic, and I had a natural knack for training. So I became the training guy for all of our units and ended up being the first sergeant over at my unit when I retired.
I've always said that the military and high school football, the same qualities that make a good soldier translate to being a good football player: dedication, sacrifice, teamwork. Would you expand on that, sir?
Yes, that was the number one thing that I was really concerned about. We had some of the most brilliant coaches with all the X's and O's. So I didn't have to worry about looking at that. My stuff was looking at the young men that were performing the X's and O's, and I could fully just put all my effort and all my concentration into help developing them into better young men. So I got to work with them in their school and with their parents and in our community, make them better people.
So then when you got in hot water, because here you are, you spent a big chunk of your life defending this nation and defending the Republic and what it stands for. Were you a little taken back when the school district got on your case for saying the Lord's Prayer after a football game?
Yeah, very much so. At first, I was very confused with what was going on, and then when they said, "Well, just stop doing it with the team," I said, "That's unfortunate, but hey, your school, your rules." And then they said, "Well, no, we can still see you doing it, so you have to stop." That's where I drew the line. The Constitution means way too much to me. I've had 20 years. I've had, brothers and sisters that have died to support and defend the Constitution. So it really meant something to me, and I was going to exercise my rights as an American. And I was not going to let them take it away. If they could take it away from me, imagine what they could do to everybody else.
Well, yeah, we're seeing that a little bit, sir. But have you always been a religious person, or did that come through the military?
No, actually, it was after the military.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was a heathen and an atheist most of my life, and I met with my now wife. She was my childhood sweetheart. She was going to church, and I was failing miserably as a husband, and I needed something. So I made a deal with God. I said, if you help me with my wife, I will give you my life, and I never turned my back since.
So now in this case, it becomes a national story, as I'm sure you're well aware. We could talk all about the cancel culture because you were basically, you became representative of what a lot of people hate. How dare you pray on the football field? But then you find yourself in front of the Supreme Court. What was that like?
That's really crazy. Only thing I ever wanted to do was just coach football and pray after football games. That's what I asked the Supreme Court for. So it really blew my mind. We were in the highest court in the land over something so simple as a 15-second prayer after a football game. It made absolutely no sense to me. So such a time as this, God called me to fight the good fight. And I can honestly say that I fought the good fight. I finished a race and I kept the faith the whole time.
Joel, they say during times of adversity, of which you experienced with, again, the cancel culture, you find out who your real friends are and who your real friend or who pretend to be your real friends aren't. Could you speak to that a little bit? Now going back to school, is there awkwardness about some of the people who you thought would stand by your side, abandon you, and now you have to rub shoulders with them again?
Right. Yeah. That's what was one of the hardest things to do because I always considered these guys my friends. I worked with these people for, a decade. Now I've known them for almost 2 decades. You think that because something as simple as this, you wouldn't lose your friends over, but it is so awkward going back to the school. I wish I could say that the school was taking me back with open arms and they were like, hey, we lost this, and we learned this. And we really are, looking forward to embracing what the First Amendment's about and educating our kids about it. But no, they've been not so good, and it has been rough. It's been a rough time.
I can't imagine how awkward that is. But you have a book coming out. Do you name names in the book? Are you going to talk more specifically about this in greater detail? Tell us about Average Joe.
Yeah, well, you get all these little news clips or Facebook posts, or just somebody has a comment about, me and my story. So they don't know the full story, and people make snap judgments. I'm hoping that people will be able to take a look at this and say, wow, I had no idea this is why this guy stood up, why this meant so much, why the principles in his life mean that much to him. And hopefully inspire people, because it's a great love story of my love for the country, love for my family, and my love of my God. So hopefully inspire people to, hey, if this guy, the average schmuck, is, stand up and make a change and get this kind of freedom for America, imagine what we could do if we all banded together. So hopefully it'll inspire somebody.
Coach Kennedy, there's nothing average about you. Just one quick question here. If talk about dealing with the cancel culture. I mean, we're in the business of where people try to get you fired all the time. What's your advice to people like me?
Yeah, just stand up to them. What are they going to do? Try to cancel you, say bad things about you? That's been going on from the beginning of time. And we need people to just stand up to them and say, enough is enough. Are you kidding me? So what? I hurt your feelings, or my beliefs don't align with your feelings or beliefs. Well, so what? You're no more important than I am. We both have equal rights. If you don't believe it, go to the, Constitution. You might want to check that out, see what the First Amendment's about, because people are fighting and dying to save people's rights. And I fought just so people can say their protests and, unfortunately act like fools most of the time. But now everybody has a right. They're not special. So, yeah, stand up to them, and then I'll stand up there with you.
Coach Kennedy, all I can say is you don't realize how many lives you're affecting just in your job as a high school football coach. But this episode has touched lives that you haven't even met. So God bless you, sir. And I hope one day we can talk you into being on our PPR podcast, because I'd like to turn this 6-minute conversation into a 26-minute.
Oh, I would love it. Call me and we'll do it, my friend.
All right, Coach Kennedy, and all the best to you, and I wish you great success with your book, sir.
Thank you. Be blessed, guys.